the success model from made to stick is what I want to go over here. And success, each of the letters stands for simple, unexpected, concrete, credible, emotional, and stories. And the extra S is just small because there isn't an extra S in the model. But I wanted to go over it a little bit because it's a good way to put context to storytelling. And simple basically means that they're simple and easy stories to understand, right? It's something that all of us can understand. Unexpected, there's usually an unexpected element to a story that lasts, that's made to stick, that sparks interest. And when a story is concrete, it'll make sense to just about anyone. And it may have a social justice element to it, frankly. It may have something that you're like, this guy or woman like figured it all out, and that's the right thing that happened in that story, and you get excited about it, right? These stories tend to be credible. They are credible stories that are within the realm of the expected, but they might be still a little bit fantastic. It's almost like you can imagine it happening, even though you don't know whether it would happen to you. There's an emotional element, right? Where like I just said, you can imagine that it might happen to you, or you can imagine what the person might have gone through when the story happened. And it is an easily told story. Let's take a look at a couple examples. My first one is James Charles. So James was the first cover boy at age 17, and he became an overnight sensation because of his yearbook photo. And who hasn't looked at a yearbook photo and gone, oh my gosh, well, let me get that one, do it, let me do a takeover, right? So it's a really interesting story in that sense. And James has kind of ridden this story for a couple of years now. And yes, he's had an up and down, controversial um, kind of happenings going on out there in the social world. But let's take a look at how this matches in the Matrix, right? So simple, a boy that wants to look good. That makes sense. Most of us can understand. The yearbook photo and and the accentuated cheekbones that he wanted, like he just wanted it retaken, right? He wanted to look better. And that's a little unexpected coming from a young man, but it made sense to all of us, right? Um, Concrete and the yearbooks hold this iconic importance to us in our culture, and they last forever. So everybody could relate to it, right? So it was a credible concern that he had. We can imagine getting emotional over it. We can relate to his concern, and the struggle is real. And it made for a good story, right? So that's part of why that story stuck and why he now has millions of YouTube followers, right? Another one that I was thinking about, and here's some examples of some of the posts he's done. But another one I was thinking about was Chef Chang, right? So he's the owner of Momofuku, great restaurant. Anthony Bourdain helped him get popular before his untimely passing. And Ugly Delicious came out last year on Netflix, and he's got 1 million followers, right? So what makes his story stick? He's got a big podcast too. His is an immigrant story, right? And he was on track to be a pro golfer when he was a teen and not a chef. But his story follows his journey through cooking school, learning how to make noodles in Japan, and even as a Korean, which would have been something that you would have related to and kind of thought, wow, that must have been hard, because there can be Korean, I want to say racism or whatever in Japan from some people, right? Just like we have problems here in America. So the star power with Anthony Bourdain helped make him credible. And you can see how he cares about food on the videos, right? He has an emotional sense to him where he gets excited about cooking, and he makes cooking accessible to people because he also shows people how to cook. And the Ugly Delicious approach is informative, and it uses what we call the challenge plot. So the challenge plot is a story where there's a challenge that is to be overcome. And Dave Chang definitely provides that. When we take a look at his Instagram, um, I've he sells this Sam sauce, which is basically just a recreation and an improvement on some would say improvement on some Korean sauce that already exists, and he sells this ham and stuff. So it's like it's interesting how people try to monetize their social media, and Dave Chang does an okay job at that, and he's definitely active on social media, which helps a lot. So those are a couple of examples of stories that are made to stick.